Hey guys, welcome back, and today we are here with another week of Broadway grosses and some very interesting developments in the Broadway scene, specifically with Water for Elephants, so let's get into it. Up first, we have & Juliet. & Juliet did 99.91 last week and 96.81 this week, going from 1,174,596 to 1,071,034. A Beautiful Noise, and that is closing in June, though I think with how they're doing business-wise, they probably should have closed at the end of this month. Did 55.94 last week and 56.43 this week, going from 605K to 657K. Back to the Future went from 95.42 last week to 91.97 this week, going from 1,223,626 to 1,126,199. And Back to the Future, again, has had an interesting trajectory in the sense that in the beginning it did very well, but in the past 2 months, it kind of has fallen off. You've seen it hit 900,000, 800,000, and they need to, their weekly operating cost is, I think, 900 something. Now, Back to the Future is not in any trouble. I think this will be here for many more years. It's made half of $2 million. It's going to do amazing over the summer and the fall. But again, I think the quality of this show, majority of people say, is not very good. And so I think that this is a musical that will rely heavily on tourists. But when tourists aren't there, the New York audience and the people there, they're still going to be fans of it, but it's not going to be good enough like The Lion King or Aladdin, where like it will maintain an audience outside the tourists, because this very much is a tourist show. Days of Wine and Roses is closing this upcoming week, and it's still doing very poorly, sadly, going from 62% to 58%, and 375K to 393K. Hadestown played to 100% capacity this week and last week, going from 1,185,096 to 1,026,316. And it will be interesting to see this upcoming week how much it falls, because I think Lola Talong, I think that's how you pronounce her name, brought in that box office. And they have new people coming in that are quote-unquote stars, and they are, but if you look at like the Instagram following, and I know that isn't a huge indicator, but they have a lot less followers than her. So we'll see. We'll have to see. I hope it can sustain it. But I'm not confident. Hamilton did 99% this week compared to last week's sold out 100%, going from 2,004,814 to 1,951,748. Akimbo, and that's closing in next month, went from 94% to 82%, and 582K to 519K. Lempicka, which has gotten a mixed response from people that have seen it, and I'm kind of nervous that it might not get the best reviews from critics, had 6 performances and 96.29% capacity, an average ticket of $65, which is important, as its overall gross was only $395,859. Not an amazing start. I think for a show like Lempicka, I'd like to see a 4 or 5. I know it's based off of obscure material. It's an original piece, so it's not going to make 7s or 8s. No one's expecting that. But 395K, it's a weak start. So I am kind of nervous for Lempicka's box office future. I know that this upcoming week it is selling pretty decently, so I expect that number 2 go up significantly. But I'm maybe a little concerned that Lempicka might not last very long. And I think this season is so packed, so full, and with Illinois coming in last minute to kind of shake up the season, I don't know. You know, so we're going to have to keep an eye on Lempicka. It's too early to tell, but I could see this either doing moderately well, or doing pretty well, or doing not so good at all. I think it might fit in the moderately well category, but again, it's too early to tell. But again, it's this might not be the best, but who knows? I'm hoping. But we'll have to see. I think the next 2 weeks will give us a good indicator. Merrily continues to sell out, playing to 100% capacity, going from last week's 1,623,816 to this week's 1,613,573. Moulin Rouge went from 100% to 99%, and 1,427,838 to this week's 1,364,510. Six went from 99.61 to 99.71, and 969K to 993K. Spamalot, and that is closing soon, went from 82% to 85%, and 862K to 899K, so it's ending on a high note. Sweeney went from 98% to 95%, and 1,410,644 last week to this week's 1,362,145, proving that Tevet and Sutton Foster are notable box office draws. And I am glad that it is ending on a high note, you know. The Hello Dolly revival, for example, I was looking at the grosses for that the other day, and when Bernadette Peters came on, the grosses suffered significantly. And while Sweeney is not doing Josh Groban numbers, it is still doing significantly better than even I thought. You know, and doing 1,300,000, 1,400,000, like, I wasn't even expecting it to do that good. So, again, hopefully it can continue to maintain this, and I think it will. The Notebook, which got very mixed reviews from critics, but audiences seem to be loving it, went from 98.30 to 99.77, and 767K to 895K, which is pretty good. You know, for a while we were like, it did 1 million, then it fell. This isn't how it normally works, the trajectory. This isn't the front runner for Best Musical, but I still believe that this will be here a year from now, and it's going to be here for many more years on Broadway, because it appeals exactly to the demographic, to the age range, to the white, female, middle-aged women that love to see musicals. They're going to love this show. So even though I don't think this will do well at the Tonys, I think it's going to do pretty solid. You know, it doesn't need to make $900,000 a week like Water for Elephants does, and it is managing to have a consistency of 700 and 800. So as long as it stays in that range, and will probably make $1 million in the summer, I think that The Notebook will be here for quite a long time. The Outsiders had 7 performances and 99% capacity compared to last week's 100%, and 149K to 725K. A very solid start for The Outsiders. And if we look at the advanced sales, The Outsiders has the best advanced sales of the season for any new musical, and I think that is because it is based off of an extremely popular and beloved book, as is The Notebook, although The Notebook is better known for the film. So while these two shows might not get critically acclaimed, and I don't think will win big Tonys, I think these two musicals will be here a year from now. And I wasn't sure about The Outsiders, but after doing more research on The Outsiders and seeing the advanced sales, I think this show is here to stay for a while. And audience reception has been pretty positive. This isn't, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever, and this isn't, oh, this is the next big thing. But I do think The Notebook and The Outsiders are two contenders that will be here a year from now. The Who's Tommy is also doing significantly better than I thought. And it seems as if advanced sales for The Who's Tommy isn't the best metric for checking, because when I looked at the advanced sales, it didn't look good, but the capacity says differently. The Who's Tommy did 89% last week and 93% this week, going from 891K to 822K, a very solid start for The Who's Tommy, which probably doesn't need to make, $850,000 a week to survive. I mean, it might, but I mean, it's doing pretty solid. And now we get on to the main story, and that is Water for Elephants, which got surprisingly universal acclaim NYT critics pick from the New York Times. But then you had other people saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Clearly, Water for Elephants is a divisive musical. You either love it or you hate it. I'm gonna see The Notebook and Water for Elephants. I didn't want to see these two musicals, but I've been convinced by the very divisive backlash response to both, so I'm gonna see it. And Water for Elephants did 93% this week and 86% this week for 8 performances, and 898K to $875K for an average ticket of $91, and I think the weekly operating cost is like 970 something. So it is getting closer to that week by week. And as you will remember, New York did pretty well at the beginning, and I think Water for Elephants is going to follow that same trajectory in the sense that I think this will still fail, because while I think it will get a Best Musical nomination, I do think this show is too divisive for audience members, and when you have a show like that, but that costs millions of dollars to put on a week, it spells a recipe for disaster. So my prediction on Water for Elephants being a flop still stands, but we'll have to see, because this has been a big surprise season, because no one thought Water for Elephants was going to get good reviews, and it did, but it also got really bad reviews. And it'll be interesting to see how Illinois factors into all of this. I still think Illinois is going to win Best Musical, and I think that Days of Wine and Roses and Merrily are the 3 musicals that will sweep the Tonys, and everything else will have to, I guess, compete. So those are my thoughts on the current Broadway scene and the Ghostes. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.